All right. Hey, welcome to talk show number 30 here on UORadio. This is Spider Bite of Siege Perilous. Today's March 20th, 2006. Viceroy, myself, and Deadeye jumped a plane, headed over to the UK. We're sitting in a pub called the Belching Dragon, here with a couple of guests from the other side of the pond. I'm going to go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves in a second. Starting with, we'll go down the line, of course. For those tuning in for the first time, we'll introduce everybody. Go ahead, Deadeye. Tell us who you are, where you're from.
All right, this is DJ Deadeye from Sonoma Charge, and hope everybody will enjoy our talk show today.
Thanks. And Viceroy, go ahead.
Howdy there, everybody. This is the Viceroy from Chesapeake, and I want to thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in, and TD is going to be joining us, Town Drunk.
Absolutely, yeah. Town Drunk will be coming in a moment. I heard something about a dog and satisfying. I have no idea what goes on beyond that. And I don't want to know. No, I'm kidding. Next up, we have a very special friend of mine, Blind Otto of Siege Perilous. Go ahead, Blind Otto. Go ahead and tell us where you're from, what you do.
Hello, Blind Otto here from Siege Perilous, where I do just about everything. Mining, blacksmithing, helping newcomers, telling fine stories, at least I think they're fine. Some people tend to throw things. And a fair deal of stuff on Stratix as well.
Thanks. And finally we have the Eggman of CesarionTales.com. Go ahead, Egg, introduce yourself. Tell us what charge you're from, what you do there.
Hello there, mate. I'm from Catskills as well as other shards. I'm the artist on Cesarion Tales who does all the cartoons, and the guy who rips all the total Mickey cake out of all those hard worked on characters you've created on Cesarion Tales.
Yes, and we're glad to have you both. I think this is going to be a good show today. Let me bring my notes up here and remind myself what exactly we're going to be talking about. Well, the biggest thing on the agenda, of course, is they finally let loose what they've been working on, what they've been hiding and not posting about for so many weeks now, or so many days. Almost weeks. It's going on 2 weeks. Published 40. They talked about a bunch of stuff. They scrapped a bunch of stuff. I'm not sure as far as how you guys are concerned, because a lot of it has to do with PvP, but some of it doesn't. So, what I'd like to do is start from the top of their list and see what you guys think. This very, very first one, I know will have an impact on me, or at least I hope it does. It's the new and easy-to-use targeting system. Now, this is going to be good for not only PvP, but PvM, I'm assuming. For me, that is my biggest downfall in PvP, is I can't target people when they dash past me at 300 miles per hour. Or, as we say in UO, 3 tiles per minute. So, how is this going to affect you people? For me, I hope an easier targeting system, it means that, maybe a tab to the next target, or tab the person that's targeting you, or something along that line. Either way, it's got to get easier. Viceroy, go ahead.
Yes, I'm kind of curious as to how it's going to affect the, for the most part, it's that, while it may be easier for the legitimate players of Ultimate Line, I'm just thinking about how much easier is this going to make the lives of those who perform illegal operations within Ultimate Line, such as scripting. Is it going to help their bottom line? Is it going to increase it, or what? So, I still haven't quite seen the whole scripting issues addressed over on many different shards, and so I'm kind of curious. I'm looking at it from an integrity point of view overall. How's this going to impact the integrity of the game long term? if we can't even address certain issues such as scripters nor deal with them. So that's the point of view on which I'm looking at it all from.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes, no, and yes, I'm sure that when the new and improved targeting system is revealed to us down the line, whenever that may be, it is going to probably be taken advantage of in some way or another. Hopefully it won't be. Hopefully it's airtight as far as the coding goes by the people who would take advantage of the game mechanics. On that note, Blind Otto, go ahead.
Well, I can never see what I'm hitting anyway, so anything's an improvement. But on the one hand, I'd say anything, as I said, is an improvement, but on the other hand, this seems to be just another case of let's make everything easier and easier and easier and easier to do in UO. Eventually, leading into the scripting side of things, you're going to hit the point whereby any idiot can do anything in the game just by pressing a couple of keys. That's my only concern there. Admittedly, I haven't seen the thing yet, so we'll wait and see. Could be good, could be bad. I just don't like having too many things done for me.
I agree 100% with you, Otto. I've joked in the past, a couple of years ago, that I foresaw an autoplay button where you just logged in with your password and then hit autoplay, and that was it. You walked away from the game. I hope it doesn't get too easy. I do hope for an easier targeting system. Right now, man, it is really hard to grab these people that run around and disappear and that sort of thing. But you're right. Yeah, we don't want to make it too easy, I suppose. We don't want to make it harder, though, for those of us that really genuinely play fairly, too. Viceroy, you were next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree with Blind Otto over here, because, I mean, really, at the end of the day, are we simply making the game easier and easier and getting closer and closer to this utopian ideology which I've been talking so much about in the past? Is it to simply make the game perfect, easier, and everything else? I mean, where are we going to be heading with the game? That's what I really want to know. Where are we headed? Are we headed to a future where everything's so much easier to get and acquire? Or are we going to head towards the EA slogan where, challenge the game or whatever, So, I mean, I'm not quite seeing much of a challenge in many aspects of the game. So, can't remember the EA slogan, but it's something about challenge, and I don't quite see that. And where's the light at the end of the tunnel, where challenge and conflict start becoming the everyday norm in Ultima Online? When are we going to see that? I don't want conflict that's created by event moderator. I want conflict to come about naturally. And I think the best way to do that is to have players creating their own conflicts. Now, how can you do that, without, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, how can you do that with all the restrictions in place that we have currently in Ultima Online? That's my little rant.
I agree. There's a whole bunch of stuff that it's going to either make the game easier or harder. One of the things that I want to get into later in the show is the impact that Stratix has on where the developers go with the game, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that does kind of squeeze right into with where you're going with this as well. Eggman, go ahead. Your thoughts?
I think it's going to affect people differently, to be honest. It's everybody approaches the game in a different way. For me, myself, I agree with you with the targeting system. It would make it much easier, especially considering I'm so crap at things like PvP. I normally stick to PvM. But, everybody approaches it in a different way, and I could see it being a problem for certain groups, especially groups like guilds and Reds and people like that. But for me personally, I just sort of plod along and do my own thing. And I mean, change is inevitable, whether it's real life or it's pixelated. Things are going to change inevitably, like in the end anyway, aren't they? Nothing's just going to stay the same forever.
Too true. Yeah, it's all about change and adapting. Unfortunately, there are a lot of stuff, a lot of people don't feel they had to adapt to, or they didn't want to adapt to, or they didn't ask for in the first place. Of course, in real life, it's the same way, too. So, yeah, I see where you're coming from, too, Eggman. Let's go down on this list real quick here and see what's next. The buff debuff icons are being added to the user interface. Now, this was something that Draconi had been talking to us in IRC about earlier, trying to explain what it meant. And I still didn't understand really what it was about. Maybe Vice, maybe you pulled something more from it than I did with that conversation. Go ahead.
First of all, I would like to take the time to introduce Town Drunk, who just now joined us. So if we can, before I go into my little rant, introduce him.
Oh, absolutely. TD, go ahead and introduce yourself to the crowd here.
Town Drunk, you there?
You hit the coffee pot.
There you go.
All right, well, I'll just go ahead and talk for a little bit until he gets back. But anyways, to talk about the little thing, the status indicator, that's what I pretty much look at them as, the buff and debuff icons, which are referring to. It's just pretty much basically from what I gather from other online games in which I played that have these kind of buffs and debuff indicators, is that they're basically just a status indicator. They indicate to you if you're poisoned. They indicate to you if you're cursed. They indicate to you whether or not it's day or night. Because I mean, if you really think about it, when you play elves in this game, you pretty much always see daylight. You don't have the restriction of nighttime or darkness. I mean, you don't ever experience those two things. So, in the future, you might want to know exactly, when it's nighttime or when it's daylight. And for this little indicator, it might very well just tell you that it's nighttime out. But, being an elf, with racial properties of night sight, you don't have that problem of darkness ever affecting you. So how can you tell when exactly is dark time in Ultima Online? So in essence, what you're basically doing is bringing over little bits and pieces from other online games, which they have in their games. And this will in turn lure and give players from other online games who come over to Ultima Online a better understanding as to what's going on. So that's at the end of the day, it's pretty much just an indicator as to what's going on with your character.
Well, that makes sense then. That makes complete sense then. The only concern I would have is that it's more screen space, because basically what you have then is another line of icons, which I'd probably line down like the right side of my screen if they're movable. And one would be lit up if you're poisoned, one would be lit up if you're cursed, etc. And a lot of people use those to their advantage. For example, there was a screenshot where somebody had all of their spell icons all over the right side of their screen, and one of their opponents on the shard replied to his post saying, I don't give a crap what you're talking about in this post, but I just got to remind myself to attack you from the east from now on with all those icons all over there. And it makes a good point. That's more screen real estate. Hopefully they'll work that into the status bar maybe. Go ahead, Vice.
Well, in the way I've seen them do with other games is basically make a transparent image that appears on the top of your screen. The last game I can recall that I've ever played, they actually had something like this. I think it was World of Warcraft. They have this, I think. Also Shadowbane has it. And basically what I gather is that it's not going to be anywhere on your screen. It seems to me, and I could have been totally wrong, is that all this information is going to be in your title bar. But the only problem with that, if it is in your title bar, and you're playing the game full screen, you're not going to be able to see these status indicators. So what's the whole purpose of putting them in the status bar if you ain't going to be able to see them? Because you can very well play the game in full screen. So I guess in essence, at the end of the day, is a question whether or not you want it in the title bar or if you want it on your game screen, and or what. And if they do put it on your game screen as a transparent image notificator or whatever, notification or whatever, that notifies you whenever you're poisoned or something like that, how big is this image going to be? Because, I mean, let's keep in the back of our minds that most of the players, or a lot of players, Ultima Online is not a flexible game resolution. You cannot switch the resolution real easily on that. I think the maximum resolution on it is 800 by 600 or 768 by 1024. So, really you don't have the flexibility to set or alter the resolution if you get any higher above that. So, in essence, like other online games, you can, mess around with the resolutions and make it a lot bigger than you can now. So, I mean, I don't really know how that's going to work out, but it'll be interesting to see how it does.
Yeah, no, that'd be interesting. I don't know if they're going to introduce transparent gumps on our screens or not at one point. As far as right now goes, I mean, the game's basically based on everything's opaque, which is tough. I mean, I just rearranged all my screens recently to make my window a little bit larger for gameplay, and yeah, it's tough moving that stuff around. Otto, go ahead.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they introduced support for multiple monitors the way this is going. One of the worries I've got is that if they carry on with all these additions to the screen, first of all, you're looking at the death of the paper doll, which is such a trademark part of the game. It seems like the obvious place to put all the indicators, though. It would be nice to see things like, is protection cast, is reactive armor on, and so on. And various other spells that have long-term effect. But where do you stop it? Sooner or later, people are going to want counters on there.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Otto. The paper doll is the trademark. Everybody's got their paper doll up. I don't know too many people that don't run their paper doll. Viceroy. Oh, go ahead, Otto. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, it will be nice to be able to know what spells you've got cast, because when I'm working with the newer players, one of the big problems they always hit with protection is getting very confused about what their resists are supposed to be. So, it'd be nice to be able to just look at an indicator and say, oh yes, that's on. Day and night indicators? I don't know. I play with dark nights turned on and no night sight, so it doesn't really bother me.
That's too true. Viceroy, you're next. Go ahead.
Okay, well, getting back to my, and Blind Auto brought up something, to a lot of players, they may not seem like a big deal as to whether or not it's day or night. But from a role player's point of view and everything, if you're playing like a vampire or whatever, and you're always going around with, let's say, night sight properties on your armor or your gear, well, then you're never going to know when the sun's out. You never know when it's dark. I mean, it can be looked at it from a player, role-playing point of view if you want to. So that's my little argument on that. I also agree that this whole, status indicator of what kind of spells are going to be, the duration and everything of these spells. When's it about to expire? How long is it in place? Or is it going to be in place until I get attacked? Like reactive armor, magical resist, or magical reflect, or whatever it is. spells like that. You're going to need to know if you got those in place, whether or not you're in hiding. Are you hidden? A lot of players don't know just because they're gray that they're hidden. Because it's kind of hard to tell sometimes unless you're looking for pigment colors of skin, And so, if you're sitting there in a death robe and you go into hiding, you can't really tell if you're hidden or not. But, about the whole status indicator or the status bar, some people have been saying they're thinking about putting on a status bar. Quite frankly, I don't ever have my paper doll up. I don't ever have my status bar up. I use UO Assist for my status information. And so my question is, why would they put it on the status bar? Why not on a screen? I would much rather have it on the screen. And also, last but not least, what is these new additions with these icons and the status indicators? What's that going to do to people on the low-end machines? Is that going to knock them out of the race or out of the game because their graphics card can no longer support it because there's, a lot more graphical needs or demands? Because I know Deadeye, if I'm not mistaken, he had like a 32 megabyte video card until recently. And I was kind of surprised that he even had the 32 to begin with. But, I'm just thinking from a point of view, how many people out there have got 16 megabit video cards and stuff like that? And are they going to still be able to play the game, without any performance issues?
Good point. The only comment I would have on that would be that adding more opaque icons is actually, in my opinion, and I'm by no means, a developer or programmer, but from my opinion, the opaque versus the transparent, like WoW has or some of the other games, is going to be less processor intensive than otherwise. It's been a long time since EA has updated the minimum requirements for UO. I think it's been about 3 expansions, actually. So, with that said, Deadeye, go ahead.
Well, when it comes to on-screen information in any game, I don't have a problem with it as long as if it's there, that it doesn't just completely eat up the screen, or if I bring it up because I need some information from it, especially in an action game like UO where you may be in the middle of a fight or something else like that, that I don't have to sit here and wonder what I'm doing on the screen while I'm trying to discern the information from the gump, whatever it is. As long as it does that, it needs to be of a reasonable size. And transparency would be nice. As far as that's concerned, as long as it's viable information, that would be great, But if it's one of these things like some of the crafting gumps and all this kind of stuff that come up and just, wipe out the whole screen, that'd be unacceptable.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with you on that one. That's for sure. Town Drunk, you were next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say something that kind of touches on something Vice said, but it's sort of larger than that. I use UO Assist also, and the only reason I use UO Assist, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I like having my last target and target self macros on my mouse wheel, and UO Assist allows me to do that, and the client does not, which I think is silly. And then the other thing that I like about UO Assist is the fact that in the title bar of the window, all of my stats are up there like Vice said, and that's how I don't keep my paper doll open or my status bar or any of that garbage, because I've got spell icons that I don't have macros for, that because, I don't like putting macros on my letter keys in case I want to talk to somebody. I think it's so much. There's just so much. You could fill up 2 keyboards with macros in this freaking game. And so anyway, the point of all this is I don't understand. I'm not computer savvy enough to maybe describe it in technical terms, but what I'm thinking is I play on the screen where it's the largest screen you can get, with still having your window title bar up. It's not a full screen, but there's like this black area on the side and a kind of a strip down at the bottom, and that's where all my icons are. That's okay, but it seems like why can't they have a full screen with the window title bar at the top? Why can't they do that? I mean, what gives? What am I missing? And if somebody knows if somebody can translate what I just said in more technical terms, I'd really appreciate that. And I think if they made a uniform sort of an inset to this, not on your play screen, but an inset that everyone has the same inset on their screen of all the information that a player needs. And I mean, it's there, period. And taking it away doesn't change the size of the screen for anybody. Wouldn't that seem most sensible in terms of leveling, how everyone plays, Does that make sense?
It does to me, actually. I think when UO first came out, actually, it was probably, I think it was about a year later when stuff was actually able to drag down from your spell books and that sort of thing back in 99 or even 2000. I'm not positive about that. But you're right. It was back then. It was kind of like, wow, this is neat. We can arrange our screens. Customizing is cool. I'm sure it had to do with people whining and crying for it on the boards back then. But as gaming evolutionized since then, the level playing field. Everybody's got the same icons, the same status bar, the same things. They can't move it around. It's all in the same place. It doesn't give anybody an advantage or a disadvantage. Go ahead, Eggman.
Well, just going back to what Town Drunk was saying a little while ago, I sort of play pretty much in the same style where I'll have the screen at its max, but not so it's full screen. It can be a bit, I think all like the extra icons and things can be too much of a good thing. It's like, I mean, for me at the moment, my eyes are, when I'm sort of PVMing or something, my eyes are everywhere but the actual gameplay screen. I'm looking at my health, and then I'm popping open my stats to check my weight when I'm collecting the loot, and I'm shifting everything around, and it's sort of diverting your eye from the actual gameplay. Maybe they should be looking at something similar to WoW, where they've got the bar at the bottom, and you can sort of plop all your icons and your bits and pieces in there, and there's that tab at the end, and you can just scroll through them. You've got like say 1 to 9 pages of all your personal icons that you can stick in there. It's at the moment it's just so much clutter around the edge of the screen. It just diverts you from the actual game that you're playing.
Good point. I would like to see that. I'd hate to see UO turn into World of Warcraft or EverQuest or something like that. But basically, like I talked about earlier, there's people. Well, there's one gal that I know that Friday over on UO forums. Her screen is covered with mage macros. I mean, covered. And to look at the screenshots from her, it's like, oh my God, I could come up from her from the south or the east and have 3 spells cast on her before she even knew I was around, unless she was watching her journal. So to put those things in their place would be great. But do we want to turn the game into World of Warcraft or EverQuest? I believe. Ooh, okay, guys, speak up and tell me who is next.
I think it was me.
Go ahead, bud.
All right. Well, I was just going to ask that very question. Who all here or who all out there listening is going to be happy about these changes? Are you happy about the changes, or are you upset about it? Are you concerned that we're following after other online games out there? Do you think it's a good thing for Ultima Online? And will we continue to see ideas taken from other online games and applied towards UO? I guess it really comes down to a level of personal preference as to whether or not you're going to enjoy something like this. So I guess that's a question we need to be asking the listeners out there as to what their thoughts are on that, because I can, for me, I really don't have much of a problem with it, but I do have a little bit of concern as to, what direction is UO taking. Is it still trying to replicate other online games and some of its features, or what? Or is this a small step towards modernizing Ultima Online to be up to par with some of the other newer games? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? So really, it comes down to what your personal thoughts on the matter is.
Yeah, and that's a good, very good analogy. The problem with most of Ultima Online, from what I've seen in the past few years, has been a battle between the people who are sitting here reminiscing about the old days and those who have played the other games like World of Warcraft or EverQuest and going, why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? And the developers sitting in the middle going, well, let's try and give them something in between, and it's just not working. If they would have put their foot down and go, you know what, we're going to go ahead and we're going to compete with EverQuest, we're going to compete with World of Warcraft, and this is your new interface, live with it. As everybody knows who's listened to me in the past, I'm a pull the Band-Aid advocate. Pull that Band-Aid fast. If you're going to do something, do it. Don't screw around and toy with the people over in the UO Hall forums. But that's just my opinion. Go ahead, Ditto.
Well, in terms of how well all this is going to work and what everybody's liking it, like I say, talking about this new information dump or whatever they're talking about, we're just going to have to take a look at it and see what it looks like when it gets here, because they really haven't given us a lot of insight as to what format it's going to have. Now, one of the things that has been brought up is a new targeting system. Now, one thing I can say, I played a lot of games where you could set up a hotkey that would allow you to cycle through available targets within a certain radius. I think something like that might not be a bad thing in Ultima Online if it was set up for, a 10, 15 square radius or something, because you're in the situations where you're in the middle of fighting a bunch of people together and you got a buddy in trouble, you're trying to target the bad guy or the bad critter or whatever it is, and you can't, now if you were in the game like your character is, you could see them to shoot at them. But from your perspective, from where we're sitting, looking down on the game, you can't see it very well at all, and I've shot one of my buddies in the butt more than once because of that, and anything, but I think something like that might be handy.
I'm just as guilty, especially on treasure hunts, when all the spawn are like swarmed around the treasure chest.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that Teresa of Sonoma would butt in and say the same thing, where I've shot and killed many, many, many of my colleagues as I'm sitting here trying to target the poison elemental or whatever that just spawned. Town Drunk, go ahead, you were next.
Yeah, I really, what I had said, I think it was slightly misunderstood. I'm not for changing the more or less classic look of UO. I just think they should utilize tools that, well, for example, UO Assist. Why hasn't UO? Here's some schmo that makes this third-party program. Lots of people have been using this for years now. And, they could have done this ages ago, and they should, because it's a really good idea, and you can customize the displays and make them, and it's compact, and it's out of the way. You know what I mean? And it gives you can, and they could add all kinds of information to it. I mean, not just what UO Assist has, but they could do that right from the client and make it easy for everybody, and nobody would have to buy a third-party program, which to me is sort of silly and breaks their own rules anyway. But yeah, we got to see what it looks like that I said. I just, I don't want to change the way UO looks. And if, as new, I know when they changed, like, the Gumps for like questing on this ML thing, or was it Samurai Empire, or was it ML where they changed the gumps? Anyway, I was horrified. It sucks. I mean, this little trumpet plays, you know, and you're in this little private conversation. I mean, it's not UO anymore. I mean, the NPC, I mean, no one can see this NPC talking to you except you, and the gump is like covers the entire screen. I mean, when was the last time you went down to do Gold Skulls and you started the quest and the Bone Demon is coming up to you and this stupid screen pops up and covers the entire game screen? That's whoever developed that just obviously doesn't play the game. I mean, you can't have stuff like that. I mean, if you're down in Bedlam and you're doing the quest down there with all the crap going on, and you click on the little quest gump, and all of a sudden the entire screen is covered with some NPC saying 2 sentences, you know, and you can't even get out of the way. I mean, you know, some Red Death is, you know, kicking your ass, and you can't even move because you can't even see it. I mean, we need to go back to the way it looked in the interface, but do some sensible things that have already been done that they could do. This isn't rocket science here. It's already been done.
Oh, I agree, 100%. There are a lot of gumps that should not come up when that happens. One of them is when you're reported for a murder, or when you report somebody, would you like to report this person for murder? You're trying to get your stuff back, and all of a sudden this gump pops up over your screen. There are better ways of doing it, that's for sure. Eggman, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The full screen gump coming over the screen, that is a real pain in the backside. But personally, with all the changes, it doesn't really faze me that much. I mean, I'll just carry on doing what I'm doing and just taking everything in as it changes along. But, I can understand where they're coming from with like looking at other games like WoW and Lineage and things like that, and like taking things from them and adding them to UO to keep up with what's going on. But I think they do need, at the same time, need to take a step back and realise that UO was the game really that set the standard for all these new games. It's the granddaddy of online games, and all these other online games that are out now have took things from UO to become what they are. So I mean, I think they don't want to lose their identity in the race to keep up with all of these new games out now.
Oh, you're 100% right as far as UO grandfathering all these other games that are out there right now. And unfortunately, that's the way the business world works, though. I hate to say it. Having been around back when, when internet providers were brand new, I can remember working for an ISP that had 100 modems, and the next town over thought, oh wow, what a great idea, and they set up a shop with 200 modems based on the same thing. So everybody leeches off of each other's ideas, and some get more backing, more money, more whatever. Go ahead, Vice. Right now you've been waiting a while.
Yes, just pointing out the whole gumps issue and everything. I really don't understand why we don't have consistency with the gumps that do appear up on your screen or, show up on your screen. And what I'm referring to is that when you come to crafting gumps, or whatever it is that you may be doing in terms of crafting, you have transparency. However, whenever you deal with, quest gumps and stuff like that, it's nothing but eye candy. So why is there no consistency amongst all the different gumps that we're using in the game today? Why is there no slider bar to, set a default transparency rate? If you want to look at the eye candy, you can. If you don't want to look at the eye candy, you can make it totally transparent. I've seen many other online games use transparent, ability to, make your windows transparent and stuff like that. Gumps transparent. and you can specify for each gump type or whatever. So, for example, I could specify the gump type for the guild menu. I could specify it for the questing menu and so forth, the quest menu. So, I mean, depending on that's what we ought to be having, and that would probably maybe help with some of the problems with the whole gump popping up. Also, why can we not, if we're going to be reporting murderers, why can't we do that at our convenience when we, maybe click on it? Why do we have to make a decision there and then? Why can we not simply make it later, by clicking on an option, open up, a list of people that have killed you, and then have the option to report them when it's convenient for you? Like I said, I think there's a lot of restrictions in place. I think a lot of things are forced onto the players. And really, I think the game should be about giving players the choice and the ability to make things more convenient for them as players, and not so much restricting players' actions or what players can do, or forcing, a dilemma or basically an ultimatum. I guess that might be the right word, but basically you're forced into a situation where you have to make a decision right there and then. That's not good practice, in my opinion. Also, Alex up here asks a good question, and the question was now there are so many different games out there. How can you upgrade UO's user interface without emulating any other game? I thought that was a very good question. And so, to preserve that unique characteristics of the game, how can you do something like that without emulating other games? Is there a way? Anyhow, something to think about.
No, that's a very, very, very good point. Several good points. I think that the reason that we don't have the transparency of the gumps and the consistency of the gumps is that, of course, we're band-aiding every single publish that comes out on very old code. But more importantly, I think UO is very proud of and probably gets a lot of subscribers based on the fact that people still own old computers. I can't remember from the ML box or not. Oh, I got to look at the minimum requirements, but I think it still says 450 megahertz and 32 megs of RAM or something along that line. I'd have to go look again to double check my figures, but yeah, I mean they're still looking at the little man. They're not looking at the newer computers and that sort of thing. With that said, I think that's the reason that I'm introducing the transparency, which is very processor intensive. If anybody's ever played WoW or EverQuest or something like that, it does. It takes up a lot of processor. Go ahead, Town Drunk.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that's really the kernel of what we're talking about here, or what Vice talking about, that question about how do you upgrade UO. I don't think, if you look at how UO, how players interfaced with UO in the past, particularly with like an NPC, whether you're doing a quest or you're whatever it is you're doing with the NPC, interfacing with the game, you would go up to the NPC and you would talk to it. I mean, and you might get a little gump that might pop up with a few choices, yes, no, or maybe something the size of your journal might pop up, and you can scroll through and buy something or something like that. That's worked. That worked. And apparently it wasn't intrusive. Certainly, text over a character's head, whether it's a real character or an NPC, that's about as transparent as you can get, and that doesn't take hardly any processing. It worked. Why is UO even trying to emulate things that have emulated UO? I mean, it's kind of like if we all played Monopoly and half the people said, well, we want chutes and ladders in our Monopoly game. I mean, it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? Sure, introduce new content, but in the context of UO. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that people don't realize that made UO what it was, or is, in still some ways. And a lot of that was very small things. Someone was just telling me recently in the past couple of days how NPCs would carry on conversations. I mean, well, they would talk a lot, tell stories, etc. Why don't they do that anymore? You know, I mean, why is all of the neat things that made UO so intricate and full of depth, it's disappearing? Why? Why is it disappearing like that? It's because we're emulating these other games? I mean, that's too bad. It's tragic, really.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Absolutely, I agree 100%. There's a lot of stuff in UO that got lost, actually. I mean, even back, if anybody who's ever played the original UO games, a lot of it has been lost. Viceroy, go ahead, you were next.
Yes, that's a very good point you guys make and everything about things being lost in Ultima Online. Hell, I mean, look at the Virtues. Virtues is what Ultima is all about. The Ultima series is based around the Virtues. And for the game, 8 years later, 8 years and 5 months or something like that later, we still do not have a completed Virtue system. So why is other things taking a higher priority than what originally was the Ultima series? Also, in addition to what you said earlier about the game requirements, hell, I think I remember even when there was a point in time where you could, I still think even to this day, you could very well get away with running Ultima Online on a Commodore system. Yes, that's right. That's a system that's like, I think has like 84 hertz or something like that, 16 megabytes of RAM. You could still get away with it. I think I've done it before. And that should be very surprising to anybody out there. To be able to run a game, on a Commodore. A Commodore with Windows 95 on it. So, but, that's something I wanted to put out there. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, yeah, I have 3 computers, and one of them still runs Windows 95 on it, and I can still run and log into all of my accounts, and oddly enough, I see very little performance difference. That's the scary part. So yes, I do believe that EA is still catering to the people on slower systems, which is, in my opinion, it's fine by me, because the way I look at it, UO is still kind of the poor man's MMORPG out there. People who play World of Warcraft or EverQuest spend a lot of money on those games. A whole lot of money. And on UO, you can pay $13 a month. If you just, for example, on Siege, you only get 1 character, but if you play on the other shards, you get 6 characters. It's their entertainment for $13 a month. That's quite a difference compared to $600 a year on, for example, hockey tickets to a game or something like that. Anyways, I still think they cater to the lower end systems for that reason. Otto, go ahead. Your opinion.
Yeah, I think what's happened really is that they never realised that Aussie actually did live up to their old slogan, "We create worlds." They created one, and no one expected it to be around this long. So, as a result, trying to get the people who pay the money into the project at EA to give it some decent backing, I think has taken some time. But I get the impression that they're getting over that hump now. We're starting to see some things happening that aren't just recyclings of old ideas. And I think Publish 40 is heading in the right direction. I've seen various screenshots and things by people with good artistic talent trying to make mock-ups of a really fancy-looking 3D client, or as virtual reality type of stuff. And yeah, they could do all of that. But then ask yourself why the 2D client is still used, probably more than 3D is.
Very, very, very good point. I'm a big 2D client fan, only because going back to the reminiscence thing, it is what's the word I'm looking for? It takes me back to the day. It keeps me in the UO that I played back when I started, and on top of that, the 3D client. Yeah, it's pretty and everything, but as far as Otto and I can attest, you can't play that on Siege. You just can't. There is just way too much lag involved. The spells are pretty, but you're blown away before you even see the sparkles go away. Viceroy, go ahead.
That's a very interesting point that you guys bring up and everything. You mentioned earlier, Spider, that you believe that Ultima Online caters to the low-end PC users that are still out there. That's a very good market to be in, considering the fact that not too many new MMOGs out there support low-end PCs or that have a good market share. So this gives the little guy who cannot afford a good, decent computer, or really doesn't use a computer all that much to begin with, that's pretty much just a casual computer user, because if they were by any means a regular computer user or a hardcore computer user and use it day in, day out, I think they would have had a more up-to-date computer than these older computers. But then again, and the reason we got the crappy 3D client that we got instead of a real 3D client was probably because they didn't want to make a drastic change from a 450 megahertz requirement or minimum requirement up to a 2 gigahertz requirement for a modern 3D game, because most modern 3D games are around 1.7 gigahertz and upwards. So if you really want to get modern with the game, you're going to be looking at those kind of requirements for a minimum just to be able to run a pure 3D game. So let's say if you are in the market catering to the low-end PC users, then you have no choice but to keep the quality of 3D at a minimum as much as possible. Otherwise, you're going to be putting people into shock. I mean, because you're really driving a huge change, and the return on that on 3D just probably isn't there, because not a lot of people who subscribe to Ultima Online probably have a high-end machine to begin with. So it probably isn't really economical for them to really pursue a 3D client at this time or any time in the near future. But so my question is when are we start? Because this is what aggravates me at the end of the day. Here we are, a game. By the way, Eggman, you got your talk button hold down. So, but at the end of the day, what really aggravates me is that we are taking ideals from other online games out there, and yet we will not commit the resources needed to bring the game up to par with these newer games. So my biggest argument is, if you're going to bring the game up to par or try to replicate various aspects of it. Hell, you might as well go all the way and just put out a pure 3D client for the guys out there who really do want to use it, instead of taking bits and pieces and putting it in an old 2D client. That's what I don't respect. I really don't. So, I mean, maybe it's a compromise, but really, if you're going to do something like that, you need to just go all the way. Why stop there? You know? Really.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, they do need to. And Xavier over here in the IRC chat makes a good point. Why doesn't EA market Ultima Online? Basically, just milking an old cow. With that said, since we've got all green lights here, I want to move on to the next subject, which is, what are they talking about here? And I just want to look at some of the stuff that's important here. Changes to improve the impact of swing combat. The removal of the honor. Here we go. The removal of honor and perfection from PvP. Has anybody here on the panel been just mowed down by the Bushido classes? Is this something you guys are looking forward to? I mean, talk about the one-hit, two-hit kills. This is where it originated from. I think Town Drunk came on first. Go ahead.
Yeah, all I got to say about that. Now, I'm not a big PvPer or anything, but I will say this: I had a guildmate when Honor, Perfection, all that crap came out. We were playing around with it. One of my guildmates was, and I was on my Bard. Okay, I put on a really good suit of armor. We wanted to see what kind of damage he could do with different weapons, you know. And one thing we discovered, much to my chagrin, was now my Bard has no fighting skills, so I'm virtually defenseless against a Dexter. I mean, he'd hit me every time, period. Well, the problem was, whether I died or not, the next day, the next week, he never lost perfection on my character. I could log in the next day. One hit. He's already got perfection. He never would lose perfection because he never missed, and it wouldn't go away. It never went away. And I was like, this is stupid. How could anyone put something like this and call that, you know, sensible? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Because not only, I mean, I can see, you know, two Dexters going at each other. It's somewhat, you know, balanced, if you will. But I mean, that's just an invitation for I mean, we're talking bards, tamers, other characters that might be roaming around in Felucca for various reasons. Look, they're already at a disadvantage, and you've just given them more of a disadvantage. That's silly, stupid. Yes, get rid of it. It never should have been there in the first place. It's not even Ultima. Samurais? Come on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been honored, perfected, or whatever the hell they call it in the past, and you're right, it doesn't go away. There have been times where I've walked into a battle, looked around, saw who I was going to pick as my next target. Of course, I was going to get killed by them, but at least I picked my next target. All of a sudden, I saw somebody that I had perfected against me, or honored, or whatever you want to call it, and I ran for the hills. It wasn't even worth it. And I went home and continued my training, or whatever I did. Viceroy, go ahead.
You know, at the end of the day, this is what I got to say about Publish 40 for the most part, given that it's pretty much PvP player versus player revamp. Quite personally, I don't see it as a solution. I don't see it as being the fix-all. Even when they do, I do understand that it's going to be several other publishers later on down the road to get other aspects of this revamp. But at the end of the day, once all that is done and over with, once they have the final completed PvP revamp, are we still going to be where we're at today, where there's imbalances between different classes? Because, quite frankly, that's not going to be something that ever goes away. That's something that can't be fixed. And quite frankly, I don't ever see a final solution to PvP revamp. And the reason I say that is because you have so many different variables that you cannot possibly imagine every outcome for all of these different variables, because that's what we're dealing with. You know, back in the old days, you maybe had the item properties of 3 different item properties, and those were a lot easier to predict the variables on those. Whereas, you know, because it was really, you know, in denominations, you know, you had one that gave you plus 5 to tactics, or one that gave you plus 10 to tactics to plus 15 to 20. So, you know, depending on if it was eminently accurate or whatever. And it was based on that. Whereas these, the ones that you get now, they're pretty much not denominations. They can be totally random. Totally random. You know, all the way up to, I believe, 40. If not 50, if not higher. So, I mean, really, how do you take 50 different points or 50 different denominations and actually predict what the outcome is going to be for them all and balance them? You can't. You realistically can't. That's why I truly hate Ages of Shadow. It's why I truly hate the game in its current form and fashion. That's why I truly want to go back to a classic shard. I don't enjoy the game right now. I absolutely despise the game for what it is right now. Because, you know, I feel like they just keep shoving more crap down our throats with no real solution to the problem. So here we are, half the team, or half the workload, or half the development, if not more, is being entirely devoted to PvP, something that really will never be quite fixed. Yeah, for the most part, they'll get it to a point where it's more livable to play with, to the point where it's more easier, or for the most part appeases a lot of people, but there's still going to be weaknesses. And that's what really pisses me off at the end of the day about the game. Instead of saying, hey, you know, we screwed up. Hey, we need to go back to what worked, you know, in the past. You know, rather than sticking with the same old crap, it's never going to quite work. That's my biggest gripe. So, at the end of the day, this all bores me. You know, just all this PvP revamp really does bore me.
Yeah, and you have some good points, definitely, Vice. Going back, and I know you and I butt heads, not personally, but on the opinion about the pre-Ren shard stuff. Yes, it would be great to go back, but that's kind of like telling Russia and the United States or Iran and the United States, let's put down the nuclear weapons and let's pick up the swords again. It's just not going to happen. There are too many people that were born, so to speak, after AOS came, joined the game after AOS came, after insurance came, after Trammel came. They're not going to give it up. And that's just the way it is, and a lot of us have to accept that. I know a lot of us old school people want to go back to the old days, but you know, it's kind of like going back to your high school reunion, in my opinion. Anyways, Blind Otto's waited quite a long time. Go ahead, Blind.
Yeah, well, my feeling is with when Samurai Empire came out, samurais and ninja have got about as much place in Ultima as giant boxing kangaroos do. But they're there. Now, we've got honour and perfection here. Honour might have been badly implemented for PvP. I agree with that. Having someone hit you for perfection and then it stays there forever is ridiculous. But we've been wanting the full virtue set for I don't know how long now. And we finally get a couple added in, but as I've published 40, Honour is going to be pretty much useless unless you want to use it on a monster for some very strange reason. So I would say a question is there any point in training up a samurai or even just trading Bushido after Publish 40? Or is it just going to be a skill that you use to ride around on a giant chicken?
Good points. Very good points, Otto. I agree. It sort of reminds me of why when chivalry was brought in along with necromancy, why they took enemy of one and made it so it was no longer viable in PvP. Well, I think this goes along the same route. Honor has been abused in PvP to the point where, the person without the honor can't compete. Same thing goes with people with chivalry. They were doing enemy of one. They hit an enemy with it, and then they'd kill them, and then vanish and wait till it wore off, then came back and did enemy of one again. Same thing. The only difference is that the perfection / honor was so abused, in my opinion, because, like Viceroy said, it sticks around with you forever. Or no, I'm sorry, it was Egg that said that. It sticks around with you forever until it log out, log on, server reboot. It doesn't matter. It's still there. So yes, it was abused. Tweaking, probably. Removal, nah, I don't see that either. Go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to reiterate what I was really getting at earlier. It's not so much the fact that I would much like a pre-UR shard or a classic shard or anything of that nature. What I'm getting at is that I just don't simply like item properties in the game, that I have to deal with 10 different item properties. I just wanted to emphasize that fact. That's really the major one single problem that I have with this game. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't quite agree with the trammel aspect of being in the game. But my biggest major problem about the game today is item properties. Because that not only messed up PvP, and the way I look at it is PvP is forever messed up. Forever. Like I said earlier, I don't believe there's any solution out there for a perfect fix. There's no perfect fix when you're dealing with so many different variables. I truly believe that at the end of the day. Because you're dealing with you probably got 50 different variables that you have to deal with. I don't believe there's any perfect fix. If there was, maybe then I'd be more inclined to agree with people who are excited about the PvP fix. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to be quite disappointed with how much of a difference there really is. It'll be a little bit more refined and everything to where it's acceptable for most players. But it's not going to ever be perfect. And that's what I had the problem with. I would much rather just see item properties removed from the game, because not only did it affect player versus player, it also affected the crafters. And those were two aspects of my gameplay that I truly was passionate about. I used to play, fight against other players a lot. Can't do that anymore, because now I have to have millions and millions of gold to do that. So that's out of the question for me. Crafting. Well, guess what? That's out of the question too, because unless you're going to get rid of everybody's high-end weapons that they can get off monsters and everything, even if they do fix it or address it later on, how are you going to get all this other crap out of circulation that's been going on for a year or two? Seriously, how are you going to get it out? I mean, really, it's screwed up already. So give me my classic shard. I'd be happy. I won't rant no more then, because then all I can do is just talk about all the great aspects of a classic shard, without all these little screw-ups that we're going to have to take years and years just to see any major, changes coming from it. But, that's my biggest gripe, is what item properties has done to the game. And that's what I'm really upset about at the end of the day. Item properties. Not the whole trammel aspect. I'm already over that. I've already accepted that. But it's the item properties that I got the major issue with. I want it to go away. Read my lips. Go away. You know, if I could wake up tomorrow, log in the Ultimate Online, didn't have the item property, I would be thrilled. So EA, if you're listening, that is the one thing that would just really make me happy. If you guys could somehow just do away with all that crap. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Vice. AOS was, trust me, when I came back to the game, which was shortly after AOS, I took a 2-year break, and I came back in, and it was AOS, and I looked at I moused over my paper doll, and went, oh my goodness, what is all this stuff? I had no idea. And then going over to Siege, and realizing that this stuff actually made a difference, I had no clue. You literally have to have an engineering degree to figure out if you're going to go in and do well. And then you may be wrong and wind up like I did last night, for example. I put together some really clever suits. And I walked into a battle and got gunned down. My suit was taken. I went home. And about the third time I died last night, I wound up going, you know what, screw it. And I just blindly threw armor on until I was fully suited and went home. And came back to fight. So you're absolutely correct. I wish we could go back to where, you know, a exceptional suit of armor from a GM crafter meant the same thing as the other guy was wearing. On that note, yes, and I wish we could go back to a pre-Ren shard. That's not going to be. That's not even worth a subject talking about at the moment. Hopefully, they'll fix the shards that are existing, anyways. We'll go back to the Pub 40 in a moment. Oh, go ahead, Vice. I'm sorry, you had one more thought on that.
Yeah, what I just forgot, and I wanted to bring up, is maybe we can discuss about the 5 on Friday, you know, over on UO.com, if you look over there a little bit. 5 on Friday, which is basically, you know, where they take some of the 5 most interesting questions and answer them. And I do want to point out what they pretty much said about the creation of a pre-UOR shard or a classic shard. And I'd just like to take the moment to read that as to what Darkscribe, the Commander-in-Chief over at Ultima Online, who's the producer, pretty much, said to that. So I want to take the time to read that. And I know a lot of people are kind of like me, you know, who would like to see something like that to get away from the item properties. But, you know, here's the question. How come EA doesn't open up a classic shard? I have very mixed feelings about a classic rule set shard. The reason is this. What a classic shard should be, depends on the player, you ask, and then when they enter into the game. One person might want the game to look like year one. 3 people want a pre-AOS shard, but a pre-Ren shard, but not a pre-Ren shard. There are a lot of people who came into after Ages of Shadow, but could, without some of the Samurai Empire and UOML stuff. Then again, you have the year 1 people who want all the expansion pack landmasses, but, you know, pre-AOS items and properties and no elves. You know, they don't want any of that. So, is it the PvP rules, or the item properties, or the size of the landmass, or insurance, or races, or professions, or crafting, or artifacts, or what? What would make the majority of players happiest? It's very close to an unanswerable question. I conducted the research, launched the surveys, conducted the focus groups, and I've yet to see clear answers that wouldn't anger as many as it pleased. Here is what I think can be done. Maybe, after a lot more research and player discussion, I think a shard with a unique rule set could provide a new kind of experience and be an important addition to the world of Ultima Online. I'm more excited by the thought of creating something new instead of the impossible task of recreating something that existed years ago and maybe never be recreated again, meaning they could probably never perfect it exactly like it was years ago. At the town hall meeting, I compared the expecting a classic shard to be as satisfying as the first UO experience to expecting your 20-year high school reunion to be as fun as your senior prom. It just isn't going to be as good. The real question should be what does a unique shard really look like? Or should I take a closer look at current hardcore shards, Siege Perilous and Mugen, and think about how to make the experience there more satisfying? These are questions we will try and answer in the next 3 months as development plans come together for the rest of the year. So, in other words, the next 3 months, they're going to be discussing what combinations from both present and old would make a great shard, and then they would consider that the classic shard. So, in other words, pre-UR is out of the question now. So it's going to be a compromise. Take some of the newer features, put it in the old style shard, with the old style rule set, and stuff like that. So I just want to quickly throw that out there.
No, and that's perfect. And as you know, that goes right along my little glide about instead of recreating the wheel or reinventing the wheel, fix Siege and its Japanese counterpart. Make it the shard that everybody's been wishing for. I looked at and I hate using UO Hall as a example, but when I've gone and looked at the people's profiles, there are people that I cannot look up that have ever tried Siege. So if they're not willing to escape the production shards and even try Siege Perilous, and I'm not promoting it, I'm not saying that, but it is more challenging, that's the word, challenging, than the production shards. Why would you go out and cheerlead for a pre-Ren shard? That's what scares the hell out of me, because I see people jumping on a bandwagon. I want this because I get gunned down every day because people have better stuff than me. But then they're going to come back. They're going to go back to the production shards, and they're going to leave a ghost town. That is my opinion. I guarantee it's going to happen. I mean, I would be willing to close my accounts if that did not happen. That's my bet. I guarantee it. I'll put it out there right now. That's my bet. The shard will be vacant. Go ahead, Vice.
Well, the thing is, that brings up a very interesting point, because Darkscribe is basically asking, would it be a good idea to make these modifications to a shard like Siege Perilous and Mugen? And quite honestly, I think you'd be hurting yourself by doing it, because not only are you going to piss off a bunch of players over on Siege Perilous and Mugen by making these radical changes by eliminating facets, because you do have Malice, which is a trailer park. I sure as hell wouldn't want to lose my house if I was playing on Siege Perilous, so that we could have a smaller landmass to where we have more encounters with other players. So quite frankly, I don't see Siege Perilous or Mugen being the answer to this solution that he's looking for. I think it's going to have to, and then even if they were to make those compromises and take the chance of pissing off all those people that got a house in Malice that couldn't get one in Britannia or Feluca, I mean, then you're going to have the newer players coming into Siege Perilous and Mugen who ain't going to have a place or even an opportunity to place a house. And then on top of that, you have one character slots right now, and you have to boost that to 5 to appease the ones that want to compromise. And so I really don't think Siege Perilous, the people on Siege, want to see something like that happen to their shard. So I think what is going to have to happen is there going to have to be a whole new rule set shard, or a whole new shard that doesn't even use Siege. So, I mean, yeah, it's a great idea to advocate Siege, but at the end of the day, I don't think the solution is going to be Siege Perilous or Mugen.
Yeah, And you know what? I will agree to disagree with you. Because at this point, there's no way to know until they did something. The bottom line comes down to, Siege isn't worried about what's going to happen to it. Siege is worried about the players they're going to lose, because the motto on Siege is, when you go, Siege is the last stop before you quit UO. If they move over to a new shard, and that shard fails, for whatever reason, that means that they're gone forever. The Siege players who stick around are going to be left with the ghost town as well. Now you have 2 empty shards. That's always been my argument. When this whole pre-Ren shard thing came up, that's always been my thing. We'll see what happens. I personally, I don't think EA is going to invest the money to do that, because it's going to take a lot of work to go backwards and fix the bugs and the dupe stuff and everything going on. Blind Otto, go ahead.
I agree with you. We've seen it on Siege. There was a mass departure a while ago to a place that I won't mention by name. People are slowly trickling back now from there, but we saw how badly it hurt the shard. I think that if they were to try and introduce this, they would do far better taking the Trammel Felucia concept and introducing another facet that has a different rule set, rather than introducing another shard.
Yes, good point. And I agree with you 100%. I know that you and I have always looked the same way. Yeah, you're going to just see people vanish just to try something new. And I'm just as guilty. I've gone over and I have played on the other shards, to use the word loosely. And you know what? It's like watching the movie Groundhog Day. You have the same thing over and over and over again. I'm sorry, nothing changes. And as far as PvP goes, yes, I wish it would stay the same as far as PvP goes. But you also give up the other stuff, customizable housing, you name it. There are so many things that, pre-AOS or post-AOS gave us that make UO original and fun. As far as role players go, especially, you just can't beat them. As far as PvP goes, yeah, we have a lot. It has a lot to be desired. So, you know what? More power to the people cheerleading the pre-Renaissance shards. I will not back you, but I will watch you guys. In the meantime, I'm going to sit here and hope that it never happens, because I don't want to see 4 shards shut down based on lack of activity because of a fad versus what's going on right now. Like Otto said. Let's go into a happier topic. They're talking about 6th-year vet rewards. Several people had some great ideas. Patty Pickaxe over on Seas Perilous was mentioned a metal dye tub. And, of course, we have the new Ethies coming out. Possibly a polar bear. What do you guys have to say about that? What would you like to see as a new vet reward for 6th and 7th and 8th year vets? Feist, go ahead.
Well, first of all, let me just fix my mic here. First of all, I think they come out a little too late for it. Because, most of the people who waited around all this time have pretty much already used up their veteran rewards, saying, hell, they'll never get around to it. And finally they decided they're going to actually get around to doing it. And I think we missed out on 6th year, 7th year, or something like that. 6th and 7th and 8th year rewards. So we haven't seen those. And now they're saying, oh, well, we're going to make them available now. And now, in addition to that, they're going to also thinking about adding additional veteran rewards to 1st and 2nd year rewards. What the hell's that? Really, what the hell is that? Excuse my language, but, really, I mean, I've already made my choices, and now you're telling me there are going to be 2 new things, and now I don't have that option. I got to wait another year to get that option to even get those items. So, I mean, really, what is that? I mean, I just don't understand that. Why would you do that? Why would you add these in? And, why not give me the option to redeem, trade back my veteran reward so that way I can go and get these new items, which I didn't have at the time when I made the selection. Because now you're telling me, well, tough cookies, you don't have the option anymore because you've already used it. Well, I didn't know that, a few years later that they was going to even get around to, the 6th or 7th or 8th year rewards. Last but not least, I didn't know they was going to add in some more rewards to 1st and 2nd year. So, I mean, I'm quite upset about that. And polar bears. I don't know. I guess they just sold themselves out to Coca-Cola or something. I don't know.
Polar bears, Ridgebacks, I would personally like to take every single EA artist out back and beat the hell out of them based on those alone. Those were the ugliest animals ever introduced in the EA. But as far as what you had to say, yes, you're absolutely correct. Oh my goodness. The people who played, it was definitely a kick in the crotch. I've collected, I'm one of the stupid people who did not collect mine. I didn't wait to collect mine, I should say. I collected mine every single year on every character that I played, or every account rather. But at the same time, you know what? I'm happy with the ones I got. All I wanted was my Ethies. Here and there I had a cloak or a robe. But in any case, Tom Drunk, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest they ought to get rid of vet rewards, or if they want to keep them, it should be something like a blessed pair of sandals or a sash. Hell, curse them. Who gives a crap? You get a reward because you've been paying a monthly fee to the game? What a joke, man. Look at all the problems vet rewards and anniversary gifts have caused on Siege. I can't believe you people even consider talking about rewards. It's silly. Don't need it. Get rid of it. I don't care how long you've been playing. I laugh whenever I'm on Stratix and people thumping their chest saying, well, I'm an 8-year vet. My account that I bought on eBay I've been around forever. I don't care. Who cares how long you've been around? Do you? Do you care how long somebody's been around? I don't. I don't put any more weight on anyone's comments based on how long they've been playing the game. Makes no difference.
Agreed, 100%, because I know for a fact that I've been mowed down by somebody that's been on a shard or in game for a month. It doesn't matter how long you've been in game. It really doesn't. The fact that you're wearing a Verite robe does not mean that you're a three-year veteran. Not at all. You're right. eBay has allowed people to buy accounts. I've bought one or two accounts off of eBay. I'm not ashamed to say that. Eggman, go ahead. You're next.
Vet rewards are an okay idea in theory, but I think they need to get away from things like metal dyes and things along that path, because I mean, before you know it, you're going to have people walking around with like luminous orange armour that's horrid when you see shards with things like that, and it just really doesn't fit in place. They really need to stick with the general scheme of things. It's like UO's based around a medieval scheme of things, and the armour and everything at the moment is fine. I don't think things like that need to be changed. As it is now, there's certain things in there, like you'll see dragons and drakes and things, and they can be these really horrid colours, and they just don't seem to fit in right. I think they should, if they're going to do things like Town Drunk says, they should stick with things that are feasible and fit in with the game in the structure and everything, rather than just totally straying off the path. I think in implementing new things, that they can tend to get a little bit carried away with what they're actually implementing sometimes.
No, and I agree with you there, Egg. The bottom line is, when it comes to vet rewards, everything that they've done so far, for the most part, Ethereals, throughout the years, it's come in and out of play as far as whether they're an advantage to BVP or whatever. But for the most part, most of the stuff they have is so, it doesn't have any effect on the game itself. It's all pixel candy. Which, in my opinion, is okay. I don't want house decor, because very rarely do I have a house. If I have a house, somebody else is decorating it for me. So, but that's the personal opinion. Viceroy, go ahead. Your opinion.
A lot of people think I'm upset whenever I'm, giving these little rants, but at the end of the day, I'm just trying to voice what the little guy out there might be saying. But anyways, to get back to the whole veteran rewards and everything, about the metal dies and everything. The metal dies, what is that going to do to the Takuno dies? Is that going to kind of like, make that obsolete to where nobody needs that anymore, or what? And are we going to see colors in that metal dies that just aren't realistic and everything? Because, for me, a lot of people say, well, it is a fantasy game, right? Well, to me, I say make it as realistic as possible, so that way I feel like I'm a part of the game. Is that a bad thing, to want to feel like you're a part of the game, to feel like you're actually there? That's called immersion, the last time I remember, and if I remember that, what immersion does for a game, it actually does great things for a game, to feel like you're actually a part of it. Also, one gripe I have about ethereal mounts and other veteran rewards. Ethereal mounts, they've hurt the tamers over the years, because you don't have the need for any mount. You don't have the need to go out and purchase a mount from a tamer anymore. You used to, before veteran rewards came around, I always had to have a horse. I either had to go buy from the NPC, or I went and bought from player a horse. Now I don't even have to do that, and now we got pet taming, we got, pet bonding and stuff like that, to where the mount never dies anymore now. On top of that, hell, it might as well be an ethereal mount if it's going to be, a bonded pet, an ethereal mount that you feed, because that's in essence what it really is. Also, another thing is, there's no differences between a polar bear ethereal mount as opposed to a llama ethereal mount. There's no benefits. There's no benefit to having a polar bear ethereal mount other than its unique looks. A lot of people ain't going to have that, because a lot of people haven't quite reached 8-year reward yet, or whatever else. But when it comes really down to it, there's no stamina bonus for the 8-year ethereal mount. Quite frankly, if it had a stamina bonus, it would make it more appealing than just, we got a polar bear, woohoo! Who gives a crap? I really don't. I don't care to ride all the different creatures in Ultima Online. That's not what I aspire to do at the end of the year. When I'm picking a veteran reward, I'm thinking from a perspective of how is this one any different from this one over here? And really, at the end of the day, there's no difference. Same thing with the robes. All the robes and the cloaks and everything else. Absolutely no difference. The black cloak don't have any difference in the, bronze cloak. Why? If I'm going to wait so many years just to have that option available to me, why does it not have any bonuses to it? It should have a bonus. That's what I'm trying to get at. And it doesn't. That's the problem I see with veteran rewards. And I think if they're going to continue to introduce new veteran rewards, they ought to give players the option to redeem these ethereal or their veteran rewards back in by, saying, I want to redeem this, or I want to trade it back in, and I want to pick something else. Well, maybe some would agree with me and some wouldn't. I don't know.
Well, you know what? They were playing with that with the Tokeno, Marty, the system. Perhaps they'll do that where you'll get an option to drop your Ethi horse or your Ethi Osterd or whatever onto a Tokeno or something along that line in any town, and reclaim another vet reward. I surely hope that sort of thing comes up. I've made very many bad decisions when I claimed items. In any case, I believe, Tom Drunk, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to clear something up about these Ethis. For one thing, I don't buy the tamer thing that Vice was talking about. If there's a tamer that's trying to make a living selling horses, whether Ethis exist or not, they're not a tamer. They're just nothing more than a pet reser, okay? I will say this about Ethis. Everybody out here that's talking about wanting EA to market, get new people, talking about PvP balance. I know Morgana Grimm just said earlier that her Ethi was an advantage on Siege, and anybody who PvPs without an Ethi knows that Ethis are an advantage. They are. That's a fact. Now, I want to see all those people who want to balance PvP toss those Ethis in the trash can, because they're an imbalance. And don't give me that argument, oh, we had to wait for our Ethis and it's only fair that you should. No. The people that began this game in the beginning didn't have to fight against people with Ethis. The people that began the game yesterday have to wait 3 years before they can have a level playing field in PvP just from the Ethi viewpoint perspective. So, get rid of them. They're useless. I mean, that's all they are is an advantage that's totally unnecessary. They never should have been introduced as a vet reward or any kind of a reward. Get rid of these rewards. Where's all the crafters in why can't crafters make bronze robes? Why, if they've got to have this stuff, why not let crafters make some of this stuff? Why can't we, hey, how about a vet reward where your crafter can now make a bronze robe? Why not that? Why are they just giving this crap away? Why don't they incorporate it into the game system so that players can have a more active role in creating some of this stuff? People want to have customized weapons and stuff with crafting. Why not make the rewards? Why not let it be a reward that you can make some of this cool stuff? What about that?
Excellent points. Definitely excellent points. Deadeye, go ahead.
Well, veteran rewards have been around for a long time, and I figure they're probably going to stay. But the thing about it is I would hate to be the individual that was in charge of having to come up with a 6, 7, 8 year awards, because let's face it, people did. Those of us that have played that long, good God, we have everything. It's kind of like the Christmas dilemma. What do you give to the person who has everything? But looking back, I don't know. I've always been kind of sentimental about my awards, and one of my policies has always been I don't sell them. I've got every award I ever got, and for longevity of play. And but in all honesty, I think the ones that I really like the most are the ones that have something to do with my house deco stuff. You know, something that I can set out and kind of display in my place, like the hanging shield and I got a hanging skeleton and stuff like that. You know, wall shields and stuff like that. I think those are the ones that I really like the most.
You know, you're kind of right. Although I did look forward to my unicorn, my Effie unicorn, on one of my accounts when he finally hit 4 years. I had one account that was 100 months, and I've had so many accounts that I've bounced back and forth between. But that one, when I finally could hit the Effie unicorn, that was the one for me. And I never really looked at it from a PvP vantage point, so it kind of threw me off. Otto, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with vet rewards being given out, as long as they don't disrupt the game too much. Now, I've spent nearly all of my time in UO crafting. As far as things like metal dyes and so on go, no, those should not be vet rewards. If you want to change the colour of something that's metallic, what do you use? You use paint. Go to an alchemist and have him mix them up, not rewards. The ethies, I don't know, that wind-up clockwork thing from ML is the most hideous mount I've ever come across. If they have to add a new ethy, let's rather make this the very last ethy ever. Provide one that gives you a gump that lets you select the shape of all existing animals. So there you go, everyone's happy, they can have whatever ethy they like. Personally, I'd rather see a tinker able to make Exodus or Gollum-style rideables out of metal. Ones that aren't blessed that you have to keep on going off to get a new one of. Statues are fine. Something like the recent music box would be fine as a new addition. Mini houses, I can take them or leave them, but some people like collecting them. What I'd like to see is something like a race mask, like we saw on the Halloween shard a while ago. So you can become an orc or a troll or something like that. That'd be pretty good, I'd say, as a vet reward. Change into a different shape, something like polymorph, but no added advantage. Overall, deco's probably the safest way to go.
Well said. Yeah, no, I agree. And basically, as far as ethies go, I think the only disadvantage is that people complain about are that ethies are not restricted by pet balls or any or I don't even know, pet slots or whatever you want to call them. Viceroy, go ahead.
Well, you know, the thing is, I mean, at the end of the day, do you guys not agree with the fact that, you know, an 8th year reward, ethereal, should be different from that of a 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd? Should it not be different? I mean, at the end of the day, should there not be some kind of difference other than the appearance of the reward? I mean, they're all the same thing, but shouldn't one give advantage over the other? I mean, really, if we're going to have it, I mean, I've never quite understood what's the point of getting it if it has no difference. That's what I'm saying. I don't go, you know, when I go buy a car, which is what ethereal mounts basically are. There are motor transportation in this game. When I go look at cars, do I go buy this little, you know, Corsica, you know, made by Chevy Corsica, or do I go buy this BMW L420? This is fast BMW or something like that, you know. Do I go buying that? I mean, there's a difference right there, but you can clearly tell the difference. Do I go buy a 4-cylinder engine or a 8-cylinder engine if I want speed? Well, you know, there's a difference. And I think the difference should apply when it comes to better rewards. So, I mean, that's, and I'm what I'm trying to get is whether or not the listeners out there or the people in the audience over the IRC channel are in agreement that there should be some kind of difference. Because I've heard nobody on the panel agree or disagree as to whether or not there should be any level of differences between these various ethereal mounts, or should they all be the same? And also, I would like to emphasize on that whole redeeming of ethereal or veteran rewards. The only problem I see with that is that people would trade it in, get what they needed, trade it back in. It's kind of like a return policy. Just use it, then return it, and then get something else that would be of better use to you at that time. However, what I think needs to be done so that isn't exploited is there needs to be a fee to redeem, maybe 100K or something like that. That would also provide a gold sink. So something along those lines, if they were to ever consider an idea like that, they would have to attach a gold sink fee to it or something like that. So it wasn't, so it's not easily exploited. Also, a question about the ethereal unicorns. Do you have to be a female character to ride an ethereal unicorn? Because I know if you ride the unicorns, or at one point in time when you rode the actual unicorn, not the ethereal one, you had to be a female character or something like that. So I'm kind of wondering, can male characters ride an ethereal unicorn?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. My character on Sonoma and Siege both ride unicorns, by the way. I like them because they're black or dark. And both my characters on Siege and Sonoma are dark. As for advantages go, you know what? There's really nothing we can do, though.
Give them more stamina.
Nah, you know what? Fix them. That's the way I look at it. Otherwise, there's really nothing you can do, because if they do make them more powerful and make them more of a gift to the older players, you're going to get the younger players complaining, and then we wind up with more nasty looking mounts like the Chargers. You just can't win either way, in my opinion, as far as that goes. Just make them more attractive animals. People are gonna beg for this stuff. Deadeye, your opinion?
Yeah, well, Vice, I do agree with you that the difference in the awards and the ethereals, there needs to be something that stands out. One of the things that they did, thank God, was that even though you could go out here and buy one of these somewhere, but until you got old enough to ride it, you couldn't ride it. Thank God they preserved that, because that kind of kept it special. And what I used to say to younger players to turn around and say, I don't think it's fair that you got one of those and I can't. And I say, I've got here because I played this long. You played this long, you can have one too. Who said the world was fair? Number 10. But in any event, oh, by the way, Spider, the Charger, if you dress as an evil-looking person, then the Charger looks real good on you. It really does.
Yeah, it does. Time Drunk, go ahead.
Alright, all I gotta say is this. If you've been playing this game 8 years, all you need is a wood plaque with a brass plate. They can mail it to you, and if you want people to see it, post a pic on U-Haul.
Perfect. I love it. Let's see here. What time is it? We're going on our last 10-minute stretch here. So, I have one question here that I think everybody's going to react to. What effect do you guys think that UORadio has on the developers' decisions? Now think back, especially those who've been playing as long as I have, or Vice has, or Otto has, or any of you guys on the panel. Looking at the UORadio posts, ever since they retired my UO, when people could not hide behind a Stratix name. Back then, your character was tied in with your forum post. Now, anybody can create a Stratix, what's the word I'm looking for, personality, and bitch and moan about something that they don't want, whether they play the game or not. looking back and seeing what we have right now, what do you think has affected the game? You know, and more importantly, has people who have nothing to do with the game affected the way the game has turned out today? Deadeye, you were first.
Yeah, well, I think the U-Hauls provided a forum for everyone to speak. Now, I've seen some changes come about as to kind of like the old theory, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And if enough people are jumping on the squeaky wheel and squeaking over there in U-Haul, I have seen some changes made. So I think it does provide at least a forum, something that they can go and take a look at and get some feel for what people are thinking in the game. However, you know, I think as to whether how representative that sampling is varies from time to time, but at least it's something.
I agree. I hate the opinions that are going on. Town Drunk, you were next. I saw your light go off, but go ahead if you want to say something.
The way I understood it about this, about people posting in U-Haul, they shouldn't allow anyone that does not have an account to create an identity on. I mean a current account. If you're not paying for the game, I don't want to hear what you say. If you're not, I mean, seriously, I have no interest in listening to someone's opinion who's not even paying for an account. I mean, what the hell do they have to input? Nothing. They're not even there.
I agree. I played Star Wars Galaxies very briefly. Maybe it was 2-3 weeks, I think. And I couldn't even get into the game, into the forums, until I finally paid my account up. So, yeah, I agree, and I think that's the way it should be. Because you got too many people that are pissed off at the game, or didn't like it, or hated the way it went, or whatever, throwing their opinions out there, and they are now swaying the way the game goes, even though they don't even pay their $12.99 a month. Viceroy, go ahead.
Well, to be honest, I think it's a good thing in a lot of ways because, I mean, if you look at players who want to play the game and everything, at least EA can take the feedback, in which if it's negative or positive, I think EA can take that information and look and see what made players leave the game in the first place, and take that information and maybe alter something to where it might entice them to come back to the game. For example, a lot of players left Ultima Online because Ages of Shadow. Well, those same players that left for that very reason are now over on the board saying they hate Ages of Shadow. They want a pre-AOS shard or a pre-UOR shard or something of that nature. So in essence, they are pointing out what it was that made them leave the game or caused them to leave the game, and EA can take that or they can reject it. Whereas if you only take the opinions of those who are currently playing the game, it's typically going to be positive. And when you have nothing but positive, then the developers have no way of knowing what it is they're doing wrong or what can they do to further expand the game to make it more accommodable for those who've left the game or thinking about returning to the game. So, I mean, that's how I look at it.
No, you got a good point. Eggbang, go ahead.
I think, maybe with when people's accounts are actually attached to passing on opinions and things, it may have made them a little bit reluctant to be negative with things. Sort of now the way like people can just come in almost anonymously, I suppose, it sort of opens the floodgates, and people they're less reluctant to sort of speak their mind, and they cross over their opinions a lot more honestly. Maybe that's what EA are looking at there, and I think any changes that are going to occur are going to be, it's going to take masses to sway it, and maybe that's the way forward rather than just a few people passing on opinions, as it was before. Now it gives them a wider field to look at, I suppose.
No, good point. My only outlook on it was that, from what I've understood, is that 90% of the people who play UO don't read Stratix. You're looking at 10%. So it frightened me that the fact when I read UO Hull that these people are doing this, and the devs are giving them so much attention. And I won't say so much attention as far as back to their cubes and their programming immediately, but the fact that they're giving them attention and going, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we'll take what you said into consideration, but then I'm seeing it happen. That's what scares the hell out of me. Otto, go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. It's not representative of the player base, and the other big problem I have with it is there's no accountability. If you really wanted to, if you had an idea and you wanted to push and push and push it, there's nothing short of the off chance that a moderator picks up your IP address to stop you from creating as many accounts as you've got time in the day and just hammering your idea on there. It would look as if hundreds of people were behind it. In reality, it's just you. And if you go masking your IP address or something, well, who's going to know? But, I don't know, I probably shouldn't say this given all the stuff that I do with Stratix, but half the time I go and look at U Hall, and the first thing that comes to mind is that scene from Monty Python's Life of Brian, up on the windowsill, where he opens it up and there's all these people out there. And he says, "You are all individuals." And all he gets back is, "Yes, we are all individuals."
Oh, God. Oh, I'm sorry. When you said that, I just started laughing. It's perfect. Vice, go ahead.
Yes, what I was just thinking about, how Stratix is really the minority of the players voicing their opinions. So, this small minority or, just this, privileged group of people over here at Stratix that are able to get the developers' attention and give input to the developers. Yes, you do not have the voice or the opinion of everybody who plays Ultima Online. But just like surveys, when they do a survey, do you really need to survey 1 million different people to get a accurate result? Or can you still achieve the same results or the same results with just 100 people? So really, at the end of the day, I think it really comes down to the same results. Getting a survey of 100 people as opposed to 1 million people, I think the results are still pretty much going to be the same.
I think you're right. And with that, it's 5 p.m. my time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to wrap this show up tonight. I want to thank everybody on the board, or on the panel rather, for joining me today, especially Blind Otto of Siege Perilous and Eggman. Let's go down the row, and any last thoughts you guys have. Deadeye, starting with you.
Yeah, well, as far as all the new changes in the new system and the new publisher coming on, we're just going to, some of it we're just going to have to, just like everything else, we're going to have to see it and play and see how it works. And I think some of it's going to be just like every other time. Some of it's going to work, some of it isn't, and I don't think anything's going to change about that.
Gotta love my man Boomhauer. Viceroy, go ahead.
Well, the way I look at it, each and every time they make a change to the game, it's either a hit or a miss. So that basically tells everybody out there there's a 50% chance of doing it right or 50% of getting it all wrong. But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and I'm glad to see we have new faces around here on the talk show and the panel. And we're definitely going to try to do more of that, to bring on guests that we never had on before, or listeners out there or visitors out there who visit UO Radio, or just hang out with us or whatever. We want to get your input too. So if you'd like to be on the talk show, you got a microphone or whatever else, and you'd like to be on the talk show, I think I'm going to create a forum for you basically to go over there and say, hey, I want to be a part of the talk show, or some kind of application saying, hey, I'd like to be a part of the talk show. So be looking forward to that over on the forums, over on the website. It's going to be somewhere. I don't know yet where. But we definitely want to start hearing more different various opinions instead of the same old people. And so hopefully we'll have you all over here someday at some point in time. So thank you.
Yeah, perfect. I love that idea as well. Hopefully we get a lot more people in here. Otto, go ahead. Say hello, goodbye, whatever.
Yeah, it's been fun being here. And, going way back to what we were talking about with the pre-Ren shard, anyone who really wants a challenge, hop on over to Siege for a while. You too, Viceroy, you might have got used to Tremel, but we can soon beat that out of you. Thanks, and good night.
I knew that was coming. Eggman, go ahead.
Oh, well, I think a gauntlet has been thrown.
For me, I don't care what they change. I don't care what they do. It's always UO for me. I'll always enjoy playing it. I'll always enjoy drawing tunes about noobs and vets and all the experiences I encounter on it. So, nothing changes for me. I'll plod along doing what I'm doing. Thanks for having me tonight. Pop in on Cesarian Tales when you get the chance. And good night, everyone.
It was a pleasure having you, Egg. Like I've told people in the past, Egg is my hero. I love his cartoons, and if you do get over there, definitely go check out CesarianTales.com. You'll bust a gut, definitely.
Hey, is he the one that did the one with the Fire Steed?
I'm sure he's done all of them.
That guy, that like it killed me the other night, man.
Go ahead, Downtron.
I was just going to tell everybody, remember, if you're not having fun, it's not a game anymore. So get out of your damn chair and go outside.
That is the bottom line. And with that, we're going to end number 30 of the UO Radio Talk Shows. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. And we'll see you next week. Remember, next week on Saturday, we will have our guild interview, and we do have a guild interview this time with MF of Napa Valley. And following that, of course, on Sunday, we will have our normal guild, or our talk show. So, have a great weekend, what's left of it, and we will see you later.
All right, and just quickly fill in some missing information. It's Sunday, March 19, 2006. Thank you for tuning in to episode number 30 right here on your radio. And be sure to tune in next Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern for the Guild interview, and same time on Sundays, 5 p.m. Eastern for our next talk show, episode number 31, which will be next week. So thank you once again, and we hope you'll stick around. And we got DJ Crest coming up next.